Well, the Senate has passed part of the government's family tax benefit overhaul, but billions of dollars of savings remain in the balance. To try to convince the crossbench to come on board, the government's revised its plans for grandparents who are primary carers. They'll now be exempt from any cuts to family tax benefit B. Now, WA Liberal Senator Dean Smith had lobbied hard within his party for this change, and he explained why to our political reporter, Julie Doyle.
I think it's a great outcome that the Parliament and indeed the government has finally recognised that the plight of grandparent carers in the Australian community is different, it is unique. For a long time the issue has been very, very invisible to Australian parliamentarians. I'm pleased that senators like myself and indeed senators from across the Parliament have recognised that this is an issue that deserves some unique attention and some action.
Why then was it included in the first place?
Well, I think it's always been part of the coalition government's various social security reform measures. I'm pleased that the new Social Security Minister, Christian Porter, brought a fresh set of eyes to the issue, saw the work that Senate committees had been doing on the issue and responded to pleas like from myself and other senators.
Was it an oversight then, perhaps, that this exemption wasn't made in the first place?
Well, it speaks to the fact that the issue's been invisible for such a long time. Yes, the task of budget repair is important. Yes, the social security budget as a part of the overall budget is a large area that is in need of reform. We need to be getting people back to work, for example. This issue and the issue of grandparents in particular is worthy of some special attention. I think it shows that the government can strike a good balance when it comes to fairness.
Did you get a better response then from the current minister than when you tried to lobby Scott Morrison?
Well, I've been arguing the point first with Kevin Andrews, then with Scott Morrison and now with the new Minister Christian Porter. They were all receptive, but Christian has delivered the outcome.
Does that mean then, in effect, that he took it on board whereas the others didn't?
He listened to the concerns, he did his own research, he came to his own conclusion and he landed in the same place as myself and other senators. That's a great outcome.
Now, as we approach the end of the year, another item of unfinished business is media reform, and I know that's something that you've spoken about in the past. What's the chance of this getting progressed any further? Changes to the Reach rule is one thing that you're talking about.
There are two immediate concerns in regards to media reform, I would argue, as the chairman of the government's coalition, or the Coalition Communications Committee. The first is the Reach rule. It is redundant, and I'd argue that there's wide acceptance across the Parliament that the Reach rule is no longer necessary. Part of that reform will also be the 2 out of 3 media ownership laws. There will be a little bit more debate about that, but I'm confident when that bill comes to the Parliament, those issues will be resolved. I've argued what's important is not the interests of media proprietors, what's important is the interests of regional media consumers across regional Australia. Those voices and concerns have been heard by the new Minister, Mitch Fifield. I'm confident we will get the reform around those two particular issues.
Changing those rules, though, how can you be sure that regional voices and local content will be protected?
There is a narrow area of debate and discussion inside the government at the moment, and that is around the local content or local presence provisions. How do we ensure that the services that regional media consumers get at the moment will be similar or like services if there's a change in media ownership? But it's a very, very narrow part of the debate. I'm confident that National and Liberal Party backbench members over the summer will get to a conclusion on that and present that to the Parliament, and we will then be able to move through on the media reform issues.
Would the media operators, though, ensure that those local voices are protected? As we've seen in the past, sometimes they only do the minimum that's required.
Sometimes they only do the minimum and sometimes they do more than the minimum. And I would argue that there's actually a regional incentive for some broadcasters to pay attention to local advertising and local news and content. I argue that it has a commercial value, and when I've been speaking to the regional broadcasters, they've been able to confirm that for me. So it's a concern, but I think it's an unwarranted fear.
Now let's talk finally. Party Room has been happening today and it's the final sitting week of the year. What's the mood of the Party Room like now compared to early in the year, and given it has been a year of upheaval for the Liberal Party?
Well, politics is the ultimate comparative exercise. We are in a better position. I'd argue that the issues that we talk about in Parliament are being listened to in the community in a way that they weren't perhaps being listened to earlier in the year. We still have the same challenges we've always had as a government. Budget repair is one of them, national security considerations, and ensuring that the government stays close to electors so it can be the most responsive it can be. Next year will be an important year. It's an election year. The new regime, if you like, Mr Turnbull and Mr Morrison, still have a large amount of work ahead of them, but there's a renewed sense of optimism.
So it was worth the pain?
It has been worth the pain so far, but the point is this. The same challenges have not evaporated. The same challenges that were there under Mr Abbott and Mr Hockey are still there for Mr Turnbull and Mr Morrison, but it's beholden on backbenchers like myself to keep our eye on the real issues and to ensure that we sort of move into next year's election in the strongest possible position.
And to keep the party cohesive as well?
Well, people can speculate about lack of cohesiveness, but the Liberal Party is a very, very durable party. It is the country's most successful political party. It's been enormously successful in government, keeping our eye on the real issues, staying focused on the concerns of Australian families and small businesses will mean that we will lead the party into a very, very successful election campaign next year, whenever that should be.
Okay, Dean Smith, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.